Commander Shepard, we have another mission for you.
I'm listening.
We need you to rank all the planets in the Milky Way from worst to best. Can you do it?
I'll look into it.
Excellent. One out of 10 planets. These planets are uninhabitable. You can't land on them for exploration, and they have no useful resources. First up we have Yuntari. Yuntari is located in the Horsehead Nebula, in the Strenor system. And just looking at this planet, it looks extremely toxic. The surface is hot, and it seems to be covered in some sort of liquid, which happens to be hydrocarbons. Next up we have Zakros, which looks even worse than the first planet. It's located in Artemis Tau, in the Norsa system. And same deal here really. Its surface is made up of hydrocarbons, but also ice. The last example is Hunidor, located in Hades Gamma, in the Antaeus system. And basically, it's a frozen wasteland. Extremely cold and undesirable. What all three of these planets have in common is that they're uninhabitable, you can't land on them for exploration, and they have no useful resources. Altogether, 22 planets made it into this category, which is surprising because I thought that number would have been a lot higher, but it seems like some planets have a bit more use than others. It sounds a bit harsh, but there's a reason why these are 1 out of 10 planets. They really have no use at all. 2 out of 10 planets. These planets are uninhabitable. You can't land on them for exploration, and they have no useful resources. But they look cool. First is Antitara. This is located in the Horsehead Nebula, in the Strenor system, similar to Yuntari. This planet is made up of hydrogen and helium gas, with some ammonia, which gives it its reddish-brown color. Next we have Antimalka. You can find it in Artemis Tau, in the Sparta system. It's made up of hydrogen and helium gas, combined with chlorine and sulfur, which gives it its blue color. Last we have Tunchugon, which is one of the best looking planets in the game, located in Hades Gamma, in the Farinta system. It's made up of hydrogen and helium gas, combined with chlorine and nitrogen to give it a green color. Apart from that, there's nothing happening with this planet, which is the same story with all the planets in this category. So I came up with 23 planets for this category, but I think planets like Padovic were a mistake because this planet doesn't look good and it doesn't have any valuable resources. So I think it's a 1 out of 10 planet, but we'll leave it as a 2 out of 10 for now. 3 out of 10 planets. These planets are uninhabitable, and you can either land on them for exploration or they have a valuable resource. An example is Novana. This is located in the Exodus cluster, in the Utopia system. And looking at it, it has potassium concentrated around the equatorial ridge. So it has potassium in certain areas of the planet. And I'm still debating whether this is a planet with a valuable resource, because for a planet to have a valuable resource, you should be able to mine this resource from the planet consistently. And by the looks of it, it seems like this would be possible. Next we have Vermalis, located in Argus Rho, in the Hydra system. It's mainly composed of alumina, with deposits of borax. So we have another planet with some resources that could be mined. Last, we have Margie, which is located in the Armstrong Nebula in the Vamshi system. And this looks like a dead planet with no valuable resources, but you can land on it, so it makes the list. For this category, I came up with 53 planets, and I noticed that you're more likely to get a planet that has a valuable resource, that's a 3 out of 10, than you are to get a planet you can land on, that's a 3 out of 10, at least with what I've found. 4 out of 10 planets. These planets are uninhabitable, and they need to meet at least 2 of 3 requirements, which are you can land on it for exploration, or it has a useful resource, or it looks cool. First, we have Mavagon. This is located in Gemini Sigma, in the Han system, and it's mainly composed of tin, with deposits of potassium. You can also land on this planet. It doesn't look particularly cool, but it meets at least 2 of the 3 conditions, so it makes the list. Next, we have Vamaya. This is located in Centauri Omega, in the Hark system, and this planet doesn't really have any valuable resources, but you can land on it. I also think this planet looks cool. Now, something looking cool is a subjective quality because how can you really measure how cool something is? Either way, I think this planet makes the list. Last, we have Agibinium. This is located in the Voyager cluster, in the Amazon system. It's made up of aluminium with some deposits of tin. You can also land on this planet. Honestly, this looks like a dead planet. There's nothing really going on here. It's also extremely hard, but it meets 2 of the 3 requirements, so it obviously makes the list. So 21 planets made it into this category, which include Bor, Arcadia, Xanadu, and Svarog. But apart from that, let's move on. 5 out of 10 planets. These planets must be habitable. They also need to meet at least 1 out of 3 requirements, which are being able to land on it for exploration, or having a useful resource, or having at least 10 people living on the planet. The first example is Mercury. This is located in the local cluster, in the solar system. And looking at it, it looks like a dead planet, like there's nothing really going on. Yet, there are people living on it. So, it meets at least 1 of the conditions. It is habitable. And there are actually hundreds of people living on this planet. So, it meets another condition as well, which it has over 10 people living on this planet. This planet doesn't have any valuable resources, so that condition isn't met. And also, you can't actually land on this planet in the game, so that condition isn't met either. But either way, this is a 5 out of 10 planet. Next, we have Pharos. This is located in Atacam Beta, in the Theseus system. And it's one of the few planets in the game where you can actually go to talk to characters and do missions, which is kind of cool. But sticking to the video, this planet is habitable, so there are people living on it. Also, you can land on this planet and go exploring. So this automatically makes this planet a 5 out of 10. Next, we have Proteus. This is located in Artemis Tau, in the Athens system. And this planet is made up of over 90% water, which is ridiculous. It also has over 12,000 people living on it, which is impressive. The only reason why this planet isn't a 6 or a 7 out of 10 is because it doesn't do enough to make it into those categories. So, only 7 planets made it into this category, which is surprising because you would have thought that this being 5 out of 10, the midway point of the list, more planets would have made it, but that's not the case. Maybe this list is a bit harsh. Maybe some planets that deserve to be in this category didn't make it. I'm not too sure. But some planets we didn't mention were Neptune, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus. So, most of the planets in the solar system. 6 out of 10 planets. These planets must be habitable. They also must have at least 1,000 people living on them. And they need one of two other conditions, which are you can land on it for exploration, or it has a useful resource. First, we have Tyr. This is located in the Exodus cluster, in the Asgard system. And this planet is actually quite similar to Earth, at least in its composition. This planet is habitable, and it has a population of 47,000, which is impressive. It's also driving the hydrogen fuel cell industry, so that is a valuable resource. This planet hits 3 out of the 4 requirements, so this is at least a 6 out of 10. Next is Xeon. This is also located in the Exodus cluster, but in the Utopia system. And this looks like a zombie planet. I mean, just look at it. But there are people living here, so it must be alright. Xeon also supports the helium-3 mining industry, so it has a valuable resource. It's also habitable. You can't land on it, but it meets most of the requirements, so there you go. Last, we have Chaska. This is located in the Maroon Sea, in the Metano system. And the interesting thing about Chaska is that the sun always faces the same side. So that same side during the day has scorching temperatures. But at night, the temperatures are freezing. Chaska has a population of over 2,000, so it meets that requirement. It's habitable. Also, you can land on this planet for exploration, so that's also cool. This planet doesn't have a valuable resource, but it meets most of the requirements, so it's a 6 out of 10. Only 4 planets made it into this category. So, moving on, there's not many planets left for each category. Because of how this list is, it's extremely difficult for planets to make it into certain categories. Some planets might have some of their conditions, but if they don't have enough, they're not gonna make it. And the last planet we didn't mention was Theron. 7 out of 10 planets. This category is similar to 6 out of 10, but there is one key difference, which I'll mention. These planets must be habitable. They also must have at least 100,000 people living on them. So that is different from 10,000 in 6 out of 10. You also need one of 2 other requirements, which are you need to be able to land on it for exploration, or it must have a useful resource. First up is Saturn. This is located in the local cluster, in the solar system, and I wasn't sure whether to include Saturn in this category because it is habitable, but the population doesn't live on the actual planet, so it's a weird one because you're not sure where to put it, but I think it counts. Saturn has over 100,000 citizens, so it meets that requirement. It's habitable, once again. Also, Saturn is a source of helium-3 fuel, so it has a valuable resource, mined on one of its moons, called Titan. Next, we have Uranus, also part of the local cluster, in the solar system. Uranus has a population of over 300,000, which is impressive. It's also known for helium-3 fuel, like Saturn. You can't land on Uranus, but it meets most of the requirements. So, it's a 7 out of 10 planet. Last, we have Eden Prime. This is located in the Exodus cluster, in the Utopia system. Eden Prime has a population of 3.7 million, which is extraordinary. Eden Prime is very similar to Earth, so therefore you can grow crops and orchids, and that is this planet's resource. You can't land on Eden Prime, but it does more than enough to be a 7 out of 10. Only 3 planets made it into this category. And on that, it's not as if I had a list of 5 to 6 things planets had to meet to make it. It was a maximum of 3 things. So the fact that only 3 planets actually made it is mind-blowing. But anyway, let's move on. 8 out of 10 planets. Now we're really getting towards the end of the list. 8 out of 10 planets must be habitable. You must have at least 100,000 people living on it. And you need to meet 2 out of 3 other requirements, which are you can land on it for exploration, and it has a useful resource, and or it looks cool. First up, we have Earth, which we know is located in the local cluster, in the solar system. Earth has a population of over 11 billion people, which is unreal. We know that Earth has an abundance of resources, even though it's not stated here. You can't land on Earth, but I think Earth is a cool looking planet, so therefore it meets most of the requirements to be an 8 out of 10 planet. Next we have Terra Nova. This is located in the Exodus cluster, in the Asgard system. Terra Nova has a population of 4.4 million, and this population is one of the fastest growing in the galaxy. We also know that Terra Nova is known for having platinum as a resource, and platinum is an extremely rare resource. You can't land on Terra Nova, but I also think, like Earth, this planet looks cool, so therefore it makes it into this category. Last, we have Noveria. This is located in the Horsehead Nebula, in the Pax system, and it has a population of over 300,000, so nowhere near as much as Earth or Terra Nova. Noveria is known for conducting controversial research, which you can find out about in the game. Noveria doesn't have an obvious resource, but you can land on it. I also think that Noveria, like Earth and Terra Nova, looks extremely cool, so it makes the list. Only 3 planets made it into the 8 out of 10 category, which is surprising because I thought at one point no planet was going to make it, but here we are. I think the criteria was somewhat fair because I didn't add too much criteria for this category. Obviously, it's about 5 when you add up the 2 musts and then the extra 2 out of 3 that you need. Well, it ends up being about 4 out of 5. Yet, I don't think that was excessive, so I think that's about right. 9 out of 10 planets. These planets must be habitable. You must be able to land on them for exploration. They must have a useful resource. They must have at least 1 million people living on them. And they must look cool. There are no examples of 9 out of 10 planets, because no planet made it into this category. 10 out of 10 planets. These planets must be habitable. You must be able to land on them for exploration. They must have a useful resource. They must look cool. They must have at least 1 million people living on them. And they must have something special about it. There are no 10 out of 10 planets because no planet made it into this category.